My name is Maria. I'm actually from Queens, New York, and I recently started a support group for young adults with hearing loss ages 20 to 45. I started this movement or this support group because after I was diagnosed with hearing loss a year ago, I searched and I searched and I searched for support groups for young adults, and I didn't find anything. And I felt very isolated. I felt alone, and I was like, sometimes when you don't have the community that you need, you have to create it. And I'm in other communities for other support groups of other things that I'm challenged with, and it has always taught me that we heal in community, and I firmly believe that. My journey with hearing loss started about a year ago. My mom kept saying, I kept saying, what, huh? And she was like, you need to go get your hearing checked. So I went to get my hearing checked. And lo and behold, after that appointment with the otologist, my life changed. It was never the same. They told me that my I had severe hearing loss in both my ears. And I didn't really understand what that meant until after I started to engage with life and started to try to live my life the same way I was before. With hearing loss, for me, is about losing your ability to communicate and connect and having to find a different way to do it. After I was diagnosed with hearing loss, I was in denial probably for about a good 6 months. And I was going to a support group that I had found through another organization for all ages. And the person running the group was like, I think you're in denial. And she was right, I was. Because I wasn't ready for the emotion and the grief of the loss and what that would look like. And I was working full time. I work from home. Now I had to grapple with this new reality of what was my life. And I had to kind of question, who am I without some of my hearing? How am I going to engage with the world? How am I going to, because with hearing loss, you never know what's going to happen. It's unpredictable. And so living with that, having to go to the audiologist, to sit in the booth to get the hearing test, which one of my least favorite things to do. I got hearing aids for the first time, and I realized that I had to rely on technology to be able to engage and connect with the world. And for me, the depression and the grief set in right away after the 6 months, as I was starting to say, okay, I need to feel my emotions. I need to address this. And I started to utilize poetry and writing to be able to express my grief, to express my fear, to express my anger. I'm a poet. I use poetry as a platform to advocate for hearing loss because I don't think people really understand what that means. And I had to get used to saying, hey, can you speak a little louder? Or sitting in a different place, not going out with huge groups anymore. But learning to live life on life's terms and make lemon with lemonade is not always easy. But I started I was in therapy already. We kind of shifted the focus and started doing grief counseling. That included a lot of journaling. That included a lot of me saying goodbye to my old life, to a new chapter. And me being okay with learning how to communicate and expressing my needs to people and letting them know and saying, hey, I have hearing loss. I need you to speak up, or can you repeat what you said? Or it's also learning about the different types of technology that was going to support me, right? When I was at work, I got accommodations. I had to learn about that. What were the things that I was going to need? And, as I was looking for support, I asked a friend, I said, where should I go to look for support? And they said, why don't you go to Google Podcasts and type in hearing loss and see what comes up? And through that, I started to get more knowledgeable about hearing loss. I started listening to Hearing Loss Live, got connected with Shell Wyatt, who's awesome. And she's really been kind of mentoring me on this journey with my hearing loss. And I didn't have hope for the first, maybe the first 6 months. But then as I started to deal with my grief, one of the other things I did is that I'm a collage artist. So I started to collage different things that would help me to express how I was feeling. This one's about time because I feel with hearing loss, you don't know what's going to happen next. So every day is a gift. I have listening on one side and silent on the other because I'm not deaf and I'm not part of the hearing world anymore. So where does hard of hearing fit in, you know? I also started doing art therapy, which was very therapeutic for me. I do a lot of journaling to cope with hearing loss. But the other thing I do is that, like, one of the biggest challenges that I've had has been being okay with not being able to hear everything, but also, like, I have to experiment now every time I go out to see, okay, what hearing settings are going to help me with, like, drown out the noise. Like, I went to a restaurant with friends and the music wasn't even that loud, but I had such a hard time hearing them because at that point I didn't know with my hearing loss with my hearing aids that I could adjust them. And I think that in and of itself was really, like, to not be able to communicate with people that I love sitting at that table was painful. It was hard. But I also realized that after I had hung out with them, I said to them, hey, it was really hard for me to hear you. And they were like, let us know. I realized that I have to advocate for what I need. I have to advocate because people are not going to know, I remember, coming home and just, crying because I was like, this is like, you feel so isolated and disconnected. And, I decided that I was like, okay, like if this is the hand I've been dealt, I'm gonna learn how to use it and not let it stop me from doing the things that I want to do in life. And so, I connected with some other people in the hearing loss community and was like, hey, like, I think this is important. I think you shouldn't have to go through this alone, and you don't have to. That's why I started this group, Here For You, because you don't have to be alone when you're going through something. You never have to be alone again. We have each other. And I think that's important because no matter where you are in your hearing loss journey, you still have something important to contribute, and also it's important for you to receive. I think for me, so I remember I went to my audiologist and she adjusted it so that when I would go to the restaurant next time, I could hear them. I actually went out to a noisy place and I was able to hear my friends and it felt so good. I was like, oh, okay. So every time I go out, Shell was just like, experiment with your settings and stuff like that. But over the past year, I've had to learn new technology. I've had to request accommodations at work. There had been moments in my hearing loss journey where, one day I didn't have my hearing aids because I had lost them. And I realized that when people call me on my phone, I really do need captions to be able to connect with them and understand them. And that's really, really important. And I know when I'm home, sometimes, I'll take my hearing aids out and I realize, oh my God, there's so much, you realize how much you're missing when your hearing aids are out. And I think for me, that was something I'm still getting used to, because it is like a shock to your system, getting diagnosed with hearing loss really rocked my world. And I felt like it turned it upside down, but it also allowed me to grieve. And now I'm in my journey towards healing in a way that, I've grown so much as a person that I'm really clear that I have to ask for what I need because no one's going to get it for you. And if you want support, you got to go out and find it. That's what I'm doing. That's why I'm on this mission, to help people, young people with hearing loss, connect with one another and support us through this experience. And I heard someone say on a podcast about hearing loss, you don't digest it all at once. You kind of digest it in pieces, one of the other challenges with hearing loss that I've encountered is something called auditory fatigue. So I use the phone a lot for work. So I've learned how to like take hearing breaks during the day. I never used to have to like take a break. Like I hung out with friends in a park and we were talking and walking and I realized it's like, hey, I need like a 15-minute hearing break. You guys do your thing. I'm going to stay here. And I realized that it's important for me to kind of measure my I call it my hearing energy. to be able to, like, you know, participate in life. If I'm going to spend energy on this, I got to make sure I spend, like, you know, save it for some of that. You know, a big thing for me has been journaling. That has been a very big part of my recovery and part of my story. Because it allows me a space to kind of like, to write down what I'm feeling, but also be able to like see it and acknowledge it. I try to do that on like a daily basis. I go to like journaling workshops. I go to open mics where I perform about my hearing loss. You know, but I do want to say that when you get diagnosed with hearing loss, there is a grieving process. And it may come at different times. It may hit you at different times. You know, I think one of the other challenges is, you know, when I first got diagnosed with hearing loss, my family wasn't really sure what to make of it. They didn't really know like how much it was affecting me, you know, and I remember my parents came over to see me a couple weeks ago, and I did some psychoeducation with them on hearing loss and on how it affected me and on how it how it's changed my life in a way, you know. You know, I acknowledge the fact that I have a new vulnerability that I'm gonna be addressing as I go on with my life, but I'm not gonna let it stop me from doing what I need to do and from living my life, you know. And I take it one day at a time, because I think with hearing loss, that's really, you know, what worked for me. If I look out any farther, it becomes overwhelming.